Welcome, everybody. This is the Rotary eClub of Silicon Valley, and we are here every week in order to talk about really cool things related to innovation, entrepreneurship, and education, especially as they relate to service to others. Rotary's motto is service above self, and if you're not into that, boy, are you in the wrong place. Now, what we want to do each week is find someone to present to us or talk to us who has ideas about how to make a difference in the world. How do you improve your communities? How do you help people who are in need? How do you do all of this in interesting and innovative ways, right? And the person that we have with us this week is one of those people who finds, I think, very, very interesting ways to make that happen. His name is Josh Shipp. Josh is a former foster kid who became a teen advocate and has made all kinds of progress of helping people all over the world understand the world of teens, how they see the world, how we think they see the world, and all of these kinds of things. And you're going to get to learn a lot more about his work today. And we are very happy to have him. So, Josh, welcome.
Rushton, thank you, good sir. Thanks for having me. We should explain to everyone the origin story of how we met.
Yes, absolutely.
Other than eHarmony.
So, other than that,
right.
We have a mutual friend who is Welsh but living in New Zealand, which of course makes sense to anyone.
We like him regardless of all those things.
Absolutely, absolutely. And his name is DK. And I just spelled his name as well. There are no vowels because not everyone needs vowels. And DK is just a person who has understood social media and cool thinking and innovation for many, many years. He has helped many other people understand that. But we're not talking about him. We're talking about us. So, DK, if you watch this, that was your moment. And so DK actually, wanted us to connect at some point, but we didn't until we ended up both speaking at a TEDx program in September here in San Jose. And I got to hear Josh, and Josh got to hear me, and neither of us offended each other so much that we decided we shouldn't get together and share this story with the eClub.
I did try to heckle you during your TED Talk. I just want everyone to be aware of that.
I remember only successful heckling that improved the quality of the conversation in the room.
Good. I like your angle there.
Good man. All right. So when we think about this, we think about all kinds of possibilities for a group that is wildly misunderstood by everyone, including themselves. Teens are those people who think they know everything, have pretty much no clue about anything, but God bless them, they're learning, right? And so what we're hoping to do is to talk about Josh's work in the sense that might give our viewers a better understanding of kind of what the teen world might be, especially from the angle of how we can be out there for people who might need something more in terms of a little help, a little caring, that kind of stuff. So when we think about this, I want to start, Josh, with you. When you think about your childhood, I mean, you were in and out of all kinds of different foster homes, and I believe I remember you saying at one point that your goal was to see how quickly you could get booted from any given foster.
Oh yeah. This was actually a part of the TED Talk. Is that, and we can link that for folks later. But I actually kept a notebook with statistics of how quickly I could get kicked out of each home. And I mean, it's sort of amusing now, but the fact of the matter is, it was really just a big defense mechanism for me. I was sort of hurt and burned early on by my mother. This adult that I was supposed to be able to trust and these sorts of things. And so, I suppose understandably, I sort of became skeptical of adults and their role in my life, which I think is important for all of us to keep in mind when there's a particular kid, be they a kid in our workplace, a kid in our classroom, a kid even in our own home, that we're trying to help, we're trying to reach out to, that sometimes the dysfunction or the anger or the defiance that can present itself on the surface, it's really not your fault, though they're taking it out on you. I like to say, what kids don't talk out, they will act out. What kids don't talk out, they'll act out, and that was certainly the case for me. I was hurt and confused and sort of alienated as a youth by bouncing in and out of 12 different foster homes, being abused physically, sexually, going through all these sort of dark and difficult situations that I never dealt with, and so I took it out on those that were around me, sadly and unfortunately. But The good news is that the story doesn't end there. The good news is that at 14, I ended up with a great set of foster parents. My foster dad, his name was Rodney, who I talk about extensively in the TEDx talk. And these foster parents, these adults were not perfect. They were certainly flawed. They didn't always do everything right, but they were consistent and they were caring, and that was enough to break through my stubbornness, my defiance, my distrust of adults, and really became a game changer for me. The research that I shared in the TEDx talk is from Harvard. The National Scientific Council on the Developing Child released a study, and I think it was March 2015, that basically said, any kid that's gone through something difficult and came through the other side, sort of successful. And successful basically means not necessarily financially or career successful, but just a stable young adult. What is that common denominator? What is that through line? And they basically found that the through line was that they had at least one stable and committed relationship with a supportive adult. And for me, this is super encouraging for all of us, because it doesn't say a qualified adult, it doesn't say a perfect adult, it doesn't say an adult with a particular degree in child development or whatever, but just that these kids had some sort of adult, maybe a coach, maybe a parent, maybe a teacher, maybe a boss, maybe the dude down the street, maybe an aunt, but someone who consistently and intentionally invested time in them. And I know that was certainly my story. Rodney, my foster dad, was that initial caring adult, and then I got a big brother through Big Brothers Big Sisters, Gary, and then he became that caring adult, which is why my motto and really the driver behind why I do what I do is that I believe every kid is one caring adult away from being a success story. Even the kids that drive you crazy and don't seem to get it and push you and this and that, because I was that kid. I understand that storyline. And so that's why I'm excited about our conversation, Rushton, is, though maybe not everyone watching this is a parent or a teacher per se, so you may think, well, I don't directly impact kids or young people. Really you do. All of us have some kid in our life. They might be a nephew or a niece or some kid we work with, or some kid we see at church or in town that we think, man, what would it look like if I just paid a little bit of attention to him or her, invested a little bit of time consistently in him or her. What could that look like? And according to my story and according to this Harvard research, if you want to believe them, I mean, I don't know why they're trustworthy, it seems to make a big difference.
Cool. I think about the work I do with teachers and talking about when kids act up in class, right? And often, kids are kind of in that space where acting up allows them to control the nature of the conversation. Mm-hmm. And a caring adult will catch them off guard. They throw out a barb and they're expecting for somebody to swing right back, and the adult's like, well, that was interesting, and I'm so glad you're here. Sometimes kids are like, oh, and that can be that moment where the kid.
I love that, and I actually want to distract us now from our sort of pre-planned questions, because I love where you're going with this. So I got into speaking and writing books and sort of all these things that I do now, and I got into it by being a class clown. That was sort of the next evolution of the way I acted out. Initially, it was setting things on fire and stealing things and being angry and defiant, but then the next evolution of it came from being a class clown. And I remember the very first time I was funny and how that adult reacted. So I'm at some school, like I think a middle school, in a poor area of Oklahoma City, so an impoverished area of Oklahoma City. And I got a history teacher, and he's up there giving some spiel about how, if you're going to do something, you should do it the best of your ability. If you're going to don't just play basketball. Your goal should be to be in the NBA. Don't just do this. You should push it as far as you can.
Don't speak up in class. Make sure when you do, everyone laughs. Right.
Right. Be the best. Take it as far as you can. And so I raised my hand, And I said, so is that why you're a middle school history teacher at a poor school in Oklahoma City? And all the kids are like, ooh, ooh, and they're laughing. And, he could have understandably snapped, been mad, kicked me out in the hallway, all of those things. And looking back, I wouldn't have blamed him.
But he had an opportunity, didn't he?
He did. He took a deep breath, I guess, to probably, put aside the fact that he wanted to slap me or something, and just looked at me and said, touche. He sort of acknowledged this unrefined gift that I had. And I think that's a real subtlety that we're kind of circling around, is that I believe kids' greatest gifts and assets and things they could contribute to the world, to the workforce, to their community, often first presents itself as an annoyance. So let me put it cleverly. What will eventually be an asset first presents itself as a pain in the asset. See what I did there? But it was interesting, because my initial sort of communicating, which now I do as a living, speaking at schools, writing books for young people and parents, these sorts of things, first presented itself very unrefined, a little bit more in like the selfish category and the look at me category and the dysfunctional category. But this adult and others that followed, man, looking back, they were able to do something real subtle, which was not tell me to stop or to shut up. Though, again, understandably, that would be understandable. But to say, you've got something here, but we've got to focus it. We've got to hone it. It's not wrong that you can make your friends laugh. It's not wrong that you can think of a witty comment and sort of, burn a teacher. It's not, but how you're using it is wrong. Your timing is wrong. And here are ways that you could use it well. So, that's the first time it was funny, but then I just developed it. I got addicted to it, and I became very much a distraction in class. But this one teacher, another teacher that followed, said, "Listen, Josh, if you shut up during class, I will give you the last 5 minutes, and you can talk about whatever you want." So this was her brilliantly sort of not completely shutting down this thing that was brewing inside of me, but also recognizing, I can't have this kid goofing off to the detriment of everyone else. And so I think that's something for all of us that we can keep in mind, is that oftentimes when something about a kid annoys you or frustrates you, maybe ask yourself, what unrefined gift is presenting itself? What unrefined talent or skill is presenting itself?
Nice. Now I have to ask, did it work? Did you hang in there till the end of class and get that last 5 minutes?
Eventually. I mean, initially she couldn't go a minute into class without me disrupting or telling some sort of stupid joke or making some sort of comment. And so maybe the first day I lasted 10 minutes. Well, hey, that bought her 10 minutes more than she had, and then 20. But then eventually it was like, you know what? Yeah, I'm gonna respect sort of this deal that this woman made with me. And I remember, I wish I could look back and describe a lot of it in detail, but here's what I do remember without question in detail. Feeling, as a 16, 17-year-old kid, this woman is treating me like an adult with respect, saying, hey, this I don't appreciate, but can we make a deal? Can we come to terms? And if you do A for me, I will do B for you. And I felt a lot of respect in being spoken to like that. I felt like, she's not trying to work around me. She's not talking down to me. She's treating me with a certain level of respect, and therefore she's earning my respect.
Fair. Now, of course, her being able to say what she needed to say at that point, to set that in motion, means that she had a sense that she could talk to you in a way that might well be productive. Now, when we think about that, about the idea of being able to say something that would have an impact where someone might need it, at some point you figured out I can say things that help a lot of kids. When did you figure that out? At what point along the way were you like, okay, I'm someone who can talk to kids. I'm someone who can talk to parents. When did this kind of evolve for you?
It's a good question. So, sort of the evolution of the class clown thing was one day a buddy said, "Hey, you should run for class president. I bet you'd win, and it would be hilarious if you did." So I was like, "All right, fine." And I remember a lot of my early on, as I was developing in self-esteem and my own identity, and just sort of that general teen angst stuff. Set aside all the dysfunction I went through. Even if you have the most ideal and glorious of parents, still, you're going to look back on those teen years and be like, man, that was, I was an idiot, or that was stressful or scary or whatever. So I said, all right, fine, I'll run for class president as a joke. That way, if I don't win, I can laugh it off. I can be like, oh, I didn't win. Don't feel sorry for me. I didn't really want to win, when secretly I really did. So my last name is Shipp, like a boat. My slogan was Ship Happens. So, of course, I won like unanimously. I just crushed the competition. So part of my obligation now was to go around the local elementary school, middle schools, and give sort of propaganda speeches about high school. Here's what to expect. Here's what's going to go on. Here are our electives. Here's what you need to be prepared for. And teachers started saying, hey, kids really liked you coming in our classroom and talking. Would you come back and you can talk about whatever you want? So that was sort of the initial opportunity, was just sort of me getting these chances to talk to kids. And to be honest, at that point I had no idea what the message was, no idea what I wanted to share. And that changed for me the very first time I had the courage to tell my own story. I never shared with any of these kids, that I grew up in foster care, in and out of a bunch of different homes, abused, suicidal, bullied, picked on, felt alienated, felt alone. I never opened up about that stuff because I viewed it as weakness. I viewed it as a liability instead of a strength. And I think that's something applicable to everyone. If there's some kid you're trying to get through to, by getting through really means this. You can't help anyone if you don't understand the battle you're fighting. You can't help anyone if you don't know what is it this kid needs help with. What sort of resources or assets or whatever does this kid need help with. So if the battle we're fighting is getting kids to talk about things they'd rather not talk about, that they're getting picked on, or that they're having a difficult time at home, or that they are struggling in school and they're embarrassed to talk about it, so instead of talking about it, they're acting out. Like, none of those are things you'd want to talk about, right? As a kid, I was heavy, so I get picked on for being fat. Like, I don't want to tell someone, hey, I'm getting picked on because I'm overweight. That's embarrassing. So if our goal as adults is to get kids to talk about things they'd rather not talk about so that we can help them, or so that we can say, you know what, you might be short, but who cares? That doesn't matter. And here are examples of other people that are short, and who cares? Then my question is, when is the last time you've opened up to them about something you'd rather not talk about? See, I believe vulnerability leads to vulnerability. So if we want, that kid in our life to talk to us about something they'd rather not talk about, then we need to talk about something we'd rather not talk about. And so that kind of epiphany moment for me in that classroom eventually was just opening up, sharing my story, talking about some of the difficult things I'd gone through. That was the moment where it shifted from I can go into a classroom and say a few things that are amusing versus I can go into a classroom and share a challenge that I've had, which unlocks these kids talking about their own challenges, thinking about their own challenges differently, going, okay, if this guy was able to overcome that, maybe I can overcome my own version of that. And that was very powerful to me, to realize that our imperfections are what make us human, and it's that humanity that makes us influential.
Very cool. I have many more questions that I know we'll have time for, but I also want to make sure that I'm not monopolizing it to the point where Shags can't get in, a thought or a question as well. So Shags, at any point, feel free. So see you gearing up there.
No, I just comments. I feel your pain. I understand completely. Although I didn't have such a traumatic background, but still just feeling bored in school because everything just made sense, and the only way I could get through it was to throw humor out there, and sometimes it worked and sometimes it didn't.
Yep.
I think we all had moments where we look back and we're like, that might have been a questionable decision on our part.
Without question.
I still think the best choice, though.
Still have them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yep. The best choice was being a photographer, so I could go around the school without a hall pass and do what I wanted to. So that worked for me.
Mm-hmm.
So essentially, for Shags, becoming a hall monitor was there, kind of letting you into the system in some fashion.
Yeah, as being shared, it's finding your place and making it work for you.
Cool.
Now, open to that.
Now, when we think about kids now, all right, I think it is a recurring message from adults. Just like, oh, the kids aren't like they were when I was young. This kind of stuff, right? Which I suspect, because of its consistency, because that's pretty much always the message.
Right.
That there's probably an incredible consistency in there somewhere that has to do with a lack of understanding, right? That said, are there things about the way teens are dealing with their world right now, the kind of communication that they have with each other, what technology has enabled, that has made you think about your message to them in new ways?
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. I think the challenges are very much the same from when I was a kid, when you were a kid, and when people will be kids 100 years from now. But the complexities are different. The way they sort of show up are different. Teenagers forever have worried about their identity, where they fit, their friends, their worth, what they bring to the table, how people perceive them, these sorts of things. We've all struggled with that. But it's the complexities, and that's sort of where technology, enters into this. And, for us as caring adults, it's something we need to be aware of. As an example, if I was picked on in middle school, it's like, okay, maybe 8 to 3 when I go to school is going to suck because there's that guy and he picks on me for being the short, overweight foster kid. But then at least when I go home, I'm done with him. Like that's it. Now with technology, as an example, a kid can, in their back pocket, carry that bully home with them via the cell phone. And so, that kid could, still reach out, post things on social media about that kid, continue to sort of harass and bully that kid. And so, again, is bullying just something that's recently popped up? Of course not. But are the complexities nuanced and different because of the modalities of communication that we have? Certainly. And for me, as a guy that works with teenagers, I'm, of course, very pro-technology. I think it's awesome. There's so many wonderful, delightful, beautiful things about it. But like anything that is an opportunity, of course, there are responsibilities and challenges with it. But for me, I look at the cell phone. If you're a parent and you have a teenager, you know that you can no longer control your kid. You can only influence them. When you have a baby, you can control them. You can stick them in their crib, and you have control. They're there, they're not going anywhere. You control what time they go to bed. You control exactly what they eat. You control so many of the elements. When they become a teenager, you don't have control. You wish you did. You sometimes lie to yourself and say that you do, but really all you can do is influence them. You can say to them, you're not going to leave tonight and go here and there. And they could nod their head to you, and then when you go to sleep, they could sneak out of the house if they so wish. But it's interesting. When you have a teenager, you have limited areas of influence. Money is an area of influence, so you have to leverage that. Rides to places is an area of influence, so you have to leverage that. But I also think technology is an area of influence, meaning that I believe a cell phone is one of the greatest ways to teach teenagers self-governance, self-control, because in a cell phone you have the ability to, kind of do as you wish. You have access to whatever you want. You could be on it 24/7. You could choose to be on it all night instead of sleeping. And so it's sort of, having boundaries and teaching a kid around this thing that they're drawn to and intrigued by, the skills of self-control, the skills of self-governance, which are going to serve them, as an example, when they go to college or in the workforce. You know, when you have your own job, your own place, you could choose to stay up all night, or you could choose to say, you know what, even though I could, you know, I'm going to make a smart decision here and sort of govern back. So, you know, on my website, as an example, on freeteenhelp.com, I've outlined some resources for parents and other caring adults, such as a teen cell phone contract that has, you know, just sort of guidelines around a cell phone and helps adults leverage a cell phone as a teaching tool and putting safe boundaries and guidelines around it, because, you know, we wouldn't give a kid a car without some sort of training and boundaries and expectations. But we seem to do that with a cell phone. We just sort of say, hey, because you're tech savvy, I'm going to assume that means you're tech responsible. You know more about the cell phone than maybe I do. But they still need to be trained. They still need to learn how to use it responsibly, safely, intelligently, and there need to be some boundaries around it, I believe.
Yeah, unless the honorable choices are consistent, no matter how much technology is involved, for sure. I'm kind of fascinated how the lessons for them have become lessons for us. And what I mean by that is, you know, we talk about things like, okay, look, you know, all of this stuff that you post, colleges look at that. If they're trying to decide between you and somebody else, they look at this stuff. They really do, because it simplifies the process for them. They can say,
right,
this person posts all kinds of things. No, right?
Right.
But I heard something on the radio just recently. I mean, there was a discussion going on about whether credit companies might choose to look at your social media postings before they decide to issue a line of credit for, you know, a car, a house, or, you know, all kinds of. And I'm thinking, you know, whoa, that's fascinating. You know, wow, because you know it. Why not, right? I mean, it's private, and it's like, but why not, right? If what they're trying to do is decide whether to give you several $100,000 for a house, maybe they're going to kind of go after every last piece of information they can.
For sure. I mean, for me as an employer myself, I have a small team of 10 to 12 folks that work with me in our school programs and curriculum and such. And I mean, and without question, I'm not going to hire someone without taking a glance at their social media. And for me, it's a clue. It's not the be all end all, but it's certainly a clue. If someone is posting things that lack judgment, I go, okay. I don't go, oh, I disagree with having a beer with friends, or it's not even that I disagree with a thing. It's that this person lacks judgment, thinking this is appropriate to post. Where else would they lack judgment? You know, would they be looking at a decision within our organization and lack judgment in that as well?
Absolutely. So I could just kind of go on and on and on. I mean, I'm loving the conversation. However, we also try to keep everything down to a certain manageable length. We try to keep eyelashes out of our eyes as well, but that doesn't always work. Nevertheless, Josh, what I'm going to do is I'm going to finish things up and then give you kind of the last word. Everybody, thank you very much for joining us. You can join us every week at SiliconValleyRotary.com in order to hear about ideas related to innovation, entrepreneurship, and education. You have hopefully been reading through like our entire week's meeting, right? This is our post, and we have information there about the service projects we're doing, about cool things happening in Rotary around the world, how you know, we're improving communities here, there, locally, globally. And we love having folks come in and take part in our discussions about this as well. Here's how you do that. First, let us know you are here. The I Attended survey is just south of where you are on the webpage right now, all right? And let us know. If you are a visiting Rotarian, you should do that, because that generates the email that you can pass along to your secretary to get makeup credit for a missed meeting, all right? And then down below that, there is the Discuss system, DISQUS. And people are posting comments about the meeting and the program, and that's a place where we can share ideas and have a conversation about what we're hearing and what we think, you know, kind of might come of this. And so we want you not to simply go, I was here, I'm now walking away. Instead, rather, just think in terms of sharing your ideas, and that's part of the magic of having this way. Is it different than sitting across the table at a meeting somewhere? Absolutely. But then again, we can be doing this no matter where we are on the planet, which is pretty cool. So thank you again for joining us. And Josh, why don't you finish us up?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, every kid is one caring adult away from being a success story. That would really be my challenge for anyone watching this, is to identify one kid in your life. Again, maybe it's a kid you're related to, maybe it's a kid in your community, a friend of a friend, and ask yourself, what would it look like to consistently, intentionally spend time with that kid? I believe kids spell trust T-I-M-E, and when you consistently and intentionally invest time with them, then you will have their trust so that in those critical moments you can help them maybe see a bad decision they're about to make, or encourage them in a decision that they're about to make, and they will listen to you, not because you're cool or not because you're perfect or not because you're without flaw, but because you invested that time in them, which built that trust, which builds the equity for you to be able to speak into their life. The research shows that that works, and it certainly worked for me, and I'm forever grateful for it. Oh, look at that.
Yeah.
It startled me. You got to
warn
me about that.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Josh. Thank you, Shags. And we hope to see you again next week at SiliconValleyRotary.com.
Take care.